good morning. Great to be here. I recognize I'm sitting between you and lunch, but I'm going to feed you with some terrific knowledge, so I'm sure you're not going to have any problem waiting a little bit. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to share with you an update on what's going on at the ONF and a whole spectrum of projects. I recognize that we carry such a spectrum of work, a broad spectrum of work, that it can be hard to consume and understand from the outside how all the pieces fit together. And I want to share that with you. And if there are any questions after this, of course, I'll be here to help answer them for you. I want to start off, though, with level setting what the ONF is. I'm here today speaking on behalf of a whole pile of operators. The ONF is an operator-led consortium. It was founded with the whole notion of driving transformation in the networks and the operators feeling that they really needed next generations and next generation tools. You can see our top level operators here, and there are a whole set of additional operators at the next tier in our membership structure. And they're really collaborating to address a common problem. And what is that problem? The common enemy of the operators, if you will, is perhaps the over-the-top players, or the whole business economics that we've seen in some of the other slides today. And so the way we think of it is that the operators really need cloud-like agility and cloud-like economics. They want to get the best of what they've seen in the Amazons of the world, but be able to apply it to their telco networks. And to be frank, and I'll be quite frank today, the incumbents we've found are not delivering what's really needed. I mean, the incumbents tend to still be bundling things into vertically integrated solutions. And that's not how the cloud operators operate. They use components. They build skills in-house, engineering talent in-house, to be able to then customize and build and drive solutions to market in a CI/CD fashion with rapid upgrades. And that's requires a new business model, a new mentality, and the ONF is at the center of trying to help drive and enable some of that transformation. So, the ONF, to achieve this, has been tasked with quite an ambitious mission, if you will, and there are really three major pillars of it. It started with technology. I mean, the ONF is the home of SDN, of OpenFlow, all of this early work that really drove a lot of what we're seeing here today. And that was really around disaggregation, SDN, virtualization, and now cloudification as well. The second big piece is then around building this into platforms, leveraging white box and open source as tools to build things that are then consumable and deployable. You might wonder, what's the third big piece? And really, what that is now is around ecosystem. If you think about it, we have the technology now, and you've heard that from a number of people today. The challenge we have now is really the operators need an ecosystem of team players that can help bring all the pieces together. The technology pieces, but also there's solution components, integration components, design, support, test, all those kinds of things. And so that really is part of the ONF's mission as well, to help drive a transformation of a supply chain in a new ecosystem. So, we have been at this for about 7 or 8 years now at the ONF, and we've learned quite a lot over that time. And when we look back, can open source pursue such a mission that's quite so disruptive? And the answer is mixed, to be frank. What we've learned is that the incumbents have trouble pursuing such a disruptive agenda. Makes sense. It's disruptive to their businesses, the classic innovator dilemma. This is not really a surprise, but it is a reality. The incumbents are massive. This is a huge market, a very difficult problem to be going after. And this is a reality that we have to find a way to work with. The operators themselves have trouble consuming a whole spectrum of open source projects. I mean, there are just too many pieces. And the number of pieces continues to grow tenfold, over tenfold, over tenfold. It's confusing. There are a lot of different ways one can go about it. And that has actually, we've seen at times, slowed the market. And that's not what we want. We want to speed and help continue to move all this forward. Thirdly, the incumbents tend to take these open source solutions and build them into proprietary solutions. And so the open source components get buried under this external wrapper that then is not really visible to the operators. And that really defeats a lot of the benefits of open source, and it defeats the agility goal that the operators are after, wanting to be able to have these tools and leverage and use these tools in a very nimble way. So, from all this work, we've realized that a disruptive agenda really requires a committed focus and a unique way of going at things. And in the ONF, we've been tuning our model over the years. We're very adaptive. It's kind of an agile consortium, if you will. And we've concluded that you really need a special model. And so about 9 months ago, the operators put together a new model, and I want to share some of that with you and an update on where we are with that. So understanding our model, it's really helpful, I think, to compare and contrast it to maybe a more typical open source model. On the left here, you might think of, the way people think of open source is that you build a broad community, you find consensus, then you build common pieces that all the participants can use and leverage. But as I've been saying, the incumbents have the expertise and the engineering talent, and the incumbents play a majority role when you go about it this way because they're the ones who have the skills and can bring the skills to the table. And this lends itself to infrastructure plays. And so, it's kind of well known in open source, like if the lower down you are, the more you can share things. But if you start to move up the stack, it becomes more and more difficult to use open source to drive the market forward. And the ONF, by definition and by request of the operators, is really kind of driving up that stack. And so, that's something that we face and is a reality of our environment. So, what we've done is really come up with a model that you can almost think of, flips it a little bit. And it starts, number one, with the consumers, which is the operators. And so you just identify a disruptive end goal. You back this by multiple operators. And that's then, the operators and a select group of partners together create a platform. And that requires a dedicated engineering team because, again, you're going after something that's so disruptive, you can't just rely on the existing ecosystem or the incumbents to just wholeheartedly invest everything they have. That's a reality, unfortunately. From there, you build operator traction in an ecosystem, and then from there, you really, get to critical mass, and ultimately more of the market comes along. Really, if you build it, if they will come, if you show where the money's going to be spent, the market then, feeds into that, and we've seen that. So this is really a 4-step plan. The ONF has been executing on this plan, and I want to share an update. So number one, identifying a disruptive end goal. So our operators, our lead operators, have identified a number of things that they're going after. And actually, I've seen elements of these, especially SDN broadband access, even showing up in other slides in other presentations today. So this work is definitely having an impact on the industry. But this is around virtualizing the OLT, the PON network, the DOCSIS network, the next generation access network, but with the best of virtualization, cloudification, SDN running on white box, and all of that. Disaggregating the optical transport network. Similar kind of goal, different part of the market. SDN backhaul to be able to connect the access to the edge towards the core in an SDN native way. And then next generation SDN. So ONF is the home of SDN, but we're also now working on the whole next generation of SDN. I mean, we think there's a lot of exciting things to come. We're in the middle of a number of different projects, and all of that ultimately becomes the next layer of infrastructure for the work that we're doing. So these initiatives are all underway with a full head of steam. Actually, new specifications have been released by the operators recently, so this work is really progressing very, very rapidly. Following this, we have a couple of other projects that are actually active. The open source platforms are underway. Work is going on, but these are, in our parlance, not yet being published as reference designs. But that's around 5G mobile, RAN, and core. We already have full open source stacks for the complete EPC. On the RAN side, for XRAN, moving towards O-RAN space. We're working towards a converged multi-access and core, and I was pleased to see the amount of convergence discussion in the previous discussions or presentations today. We actually have a unique approach that we are taking here, and we're doing sort of the early exploratory work about really merging the user plane on the access side and merging the user plane on the core side in very novel and innovative ways. And we've demonstrated some of that leveraging P4 and some other techniques, and there's more to come. And then this really moves towards the access and edge cloud. And our belief is that our whole body of work, together, which is known as CORD, is kind of an ideal and native and natural platform for the edge cloud because we've been working in the edge space for so long, and it is quite a full-featured, rich, end-to-end kind of platform. So, for each of these disruptive end goals that I just mentioned, the operators are taking this approach. They're using this model I'm going to share. And it starts, number one, with, around open source. It's open source centric, but it's with the operators agreeing on an exemplar platform. And what that means is that there are so many open source pieces that we've heard from vendors, we've heard from the industry that it's just too confusing. Operators are building things in different ways. There needs to be more critical mass. How do the vendors know where to invest? So the operator said, okay, we'll come together and we'll actually define exemplar platforms that specify explicitly what pieces from the open source community, any open source communities, will be put together for particular reasons to address any particular end goal. Then added to that is this new concept of a reference design. And this is the operators jointly creating a common specification for what they're trying to build, what the purpose is, where the modularity is, where the APIs are, and how to drive that to market and make it very clear to the ecosystem and to the entire market where they're going and what they're doing, and what's backed by operators. And it's backed so much by operators that really step 3 of this plan is deployments. For each of these reference designs, a number of operators have committed to trials and deployments, and these operators have committed for these reference designs to be gold standards that are referred to in their RFPs for procurement. So this is putting their money where their mouth is. They're saying that we're going to build this, we're going to deploy it. If you participate, if you follow these roadmaps, you are in a good position to participate in this market as it evolves and emerges. And so we run this model for each of the disruptive end goals that I described to you. And this is up and running. We have operators that are getting together on a weekly basis for each of these and driving this work forward very, very rapidly. We're really excited to see how fast it's moving and the progress that we're making. So from this, the next is to create a platform. And a number of people have talked about edge, access, and core. Really what we have today are parallel networks for mobile and for broadband. We have a spectrum of projects that fit on top of this map in RAN space and core space. This is the virtualized access network and ODTN for the optical transport network. All of this runs on top of our SDN infrastructure that we've built, which has started on the left, which is based on the ONOS controller running on top of OpenFlow. This is really what's getting deployed today. But both of these are migrating towards next generation SDN. And that's with ONOS next generation, plus the Stratum and P4 work that we're doing that together creates a whole new dynamic in the SDN space for programmability and agility. All of these pieces together are coming together into a converged multi-access and core work stream and project. And then, what we're known for is Chord, and Chord really is all of this. I mean, Chord over the years has just grown, and sub-projects have taken on their own life and are consumable independently, but they all do plug together into a master architecture and can be consumed and deployed in unison. So from here, build operator traction and an ecosystem. So, how are we doing? Our belief, what we hear from the market is that there's just a ton of traction, a lot of recognition that Chord is widely known and recognized, and now these new sub-projects are being consumed on their own in many ways. And you see that we have traction worldwide, really in every geography. It's quite impressive. It generally comes from the tier 1s on down, which is almost the inverse of what you expect when you're rolling out something new in the market. And from all this, we've seen an incredible amount of energy and absolute sucking sound towards the market. The operators are clearly investing here. Pundits are saying things like 70% of operators are planning to deploy Chord. The numbers are really tremendous. The opportunity, we think, is really tremendous. And so then, that leads to the ecosystem. And our thinking here has evolved as well. And what we think of it now is almost like positions on a baseball team. That for each of our reference designs and our disruptive end goals, there are a number of positions to be played. And the market, it used to be operators just bought from an incumbent. And on the backside, the incumbent would pull all these different pieces together on the operator's behalf to build a solution. But really what the operators are saying is that, no, we want to have visibility into that entire supply chain, relationships directly with all the components. And it really starts, from silicon to specialized access equipment, that's typically in optics or an RF space, to more commoditized equipment, more white box-like for infrastructure like server storage and networking where possible. Software in the form of VNFs, very clear, we have proprietary VNFs that run on the Chord architecture as well as open source components. And Really all of the core components now at this point have been containerized and are being delivered in that way. And then there's a lot of room for system integrators as well, and this is a huge opportunity for the market. Our operators have said and been very clear that they want supply chain partners that are aligned and enthusiastic about this model. And that really has led to a shift in what our partnership has looked like over the last year, and we're very excited about that shift, and we're very excited about the momentum that we have behind that. We've had 8 new supply chain partners in place now, and 70+ vendors participating in these various open source projects that I've given you a quick overview of. And then lastly, it's around building critical mass, and what are the next steps? So here, what we've seen is that we launched this 9 months ago or so, and in that time, the ONF has added 4 new supply chain partners, 23 new innovator members, that's our next class of membership, and 4 new operators to what we're doing. And then very excited to announce that just recently a new partner, a 5th new partner has come on board. That's Infosys. And Infosys is coming on really to play a critical role in this open source system integration world. That they see it, they're starting to get a taste of revenue from our operators and interactions and engagements that they have. They see the worldwide opportunity and they recognize, and they have 200,000 engineers worldwide. And that's really the kind of mass and scale and focus that we need to be able to drive this to the next level as we move forward. So, in closing, there are a lot of opportunities for participation here, and that's what I want to share with you and leave with you. That, curated that we're pursuing is really the opposite of closed. It just means focused, if anything. So, curated is about the end users, in this case the operators, driving strategy and direction. The operators lead all of our activities, and they invest quite significantly in the number of people. I mean, AT&T's CTO Labs is our chairman, and for instance. And then, the platforms are being built in the open source, and so that everything we're doing in terms of software and platforms and projects that's open and broad participation is welcome, encouraged, and taking place. And opportunities for you, a couple of ways to think about it. I shared the 5 positions, if you will, in the supply chain. I think all of you can think about where, one or multiple roles that you can play there. But for hardware vendors, there's some very easy ways to engage. There's a Cord certification brigade that is up and running, and we'll actually be giving out certifications in the spring. So that's an effort to be able to take a pod with running hardware and software and be able to swap out components and certify them, and with a stamp of approval from the community, so that operators, when they're consuming, know that there's a higher likelihood that the pieces will all work together. For VNF vendors, closed source VNFs are welcome. We have closed source VNFs that are actually part of our distribution now, and just as an example, there's an Akamai CDN VNF that is available as part of our distributions. And then for integrators, here there really is a huge opportunity for companies that can help fill the gaps. The operators are wanting to have a hands-on approach to what they're doing, but they clearly don't have all the right skills in-house, and they know it. And so they're looking to supplement their skills, bring in external skills while they also grow their internal skills. And for companies that are willing to engage in this way, find new, unique ways to work with the operators, we think the potential is limitless. We know of a ton of engagements and a number that haven't been announced that are really very, very exciting. And more to come. Thank you very much.